originally from New York, but she's lived in Eugene now for, well, since 1990.
Yeah, long time.
Long time. She's received her BFA from Cleveland Arts Institute, and she has received her MFA from University of Oregon. Tally's work reflects on environmental issues that relate to climate change. She's won numerous awards, and I'd like you to welcome Tally. She is one of Eugene's and Oregon's most notable artists.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I know a lot of you, and then some I know, so thanks for taking the time to come and see my work. I really appreciate it very much. And so I think I'll just sort of go chronologically a little bit through these. So this series started during the first year of the pandemic, and we were all locked up, and I had lots of wonderful time to work in my studio. And the first year, was kind of really fun, actually, for me, to have so much time in the studio. And I started doing these drawings that are on this light blue paper. There's 4 of them, I think, here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I started reading, while I was starting those, I was reading about this phenomenon that happened off the Pacific coast. A scientist called the Blob. I don't know if some of you I'm sure know about that. It's this big, large mass of warming water caused by a high pressure ridge over the ocean. And so there was a big swath of ocean that was 1,000 miles towards Asia, 300 miles deep, that was exceptionally high temperatures. And it ended up moving, this is 2013 that they first spotted it, ended up moving down the Pacific coast and down to Mexico, and I think that it all divided and split up, and I don't actually know where it is right now, but if someone does know, please tell me later. And it would really wreak havoc on marine life, both, little tiny microscopic plankton up to the whales, and birds too. Killed a lot of birds, like in the millions. Anyway, I started reading about that, and I started with, I think the piece right when you come in the door. That was my first piece, and so you see these sort of streams of what I think of as microscopic, mostly plankton, sort of this warm sort of stream going through the coolness of the blue colors. And as I was drawing, I didn't really intend to do this. It just kind of was one of those wonderful things that happened. I'm kind of a map head, so I have maps all over my studio and drawers and love maps. And I've done series previously that had mapping elements in them, and I started drawing sort of outer space star formations and star clusters, galaxy formations with the ocean creatures, and so it just kind of went with it. It just kind of came together and kept on doing it. And the more and more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, this is so interesting because of 2 very different places, the deep ocean and the deep sky, and how there are similarities of form in each of those places that are sometimes indistinguishable if you see them sort of out of context. And so I just went with that theme, and then let's see, the drawings, and then it's all kind of mixed up too. I work on a lot of things at once, but you'll see a lot of different kinds of work. There's some work here that is just pure etching, the smaller etchings, and then there are paintings on cut Japanese paper, and there are paintings I use a lot of India ink in my process, and so these 4 here, the 2 here and 2 there, are the last ones that I just finished over the summer. mostly indie ink and some pencil. I call them pigment pencils. Most people call them colored pencils, but pigment pencils are these really intense, wonderful German pencils that I have. I love them. But anyway, so these paintings on panels, I thought it was so interesting because I tried to, this summer when I was thinking about presentation, I tried to put a frame around them, and it just didn't work. They were just screaming, you know, do not frame me, you know, just float me on the wall. So I finished the edges, and so that was a big, interesting step for me to do that in my process. And there's a couple different, I know I'm kind of jumping around, but there's a couple different segments of work in this show. There's a set of small etchings that are called Underwater Garden Malaysia, and that are over in that area. And those are mostly etchings, but I've really kind of blurred the line between etching and painting. I paint on my etchings sometimes, and I layer a lot of plates. And if you're interested, there's a copper plate right over there on the pedestal that I used in that series, Underwater Garden Malaysia. I was fortunate enough to, before the pandemic started, the year before, to go to Malaysia and experience the jungle and the people and the water there. It was really fascinating. Not long enough, but about a week, that was it. Saw a couple of great hornbills mating. That was very cool, which you don't see very often. And I actually filmed that. It was really amazing. Even a couple of the people that lived there were like, "Oh, we never saw that. That's amazing that you saw that." So anyway, off on a little tangent there. And I really enjoyed getting into the, as you can see, because I kept on doing it, the round format, and having no corners was really fun. And then I started cutting the paper. Most of those are on Japanese paper, the round, smaller pieces, and so very easy to cut with a little X-Acto knife. And you know, a lot of, as you can see, there's a lot of layering in these pieces. And I also want to mention that during the pandemic, I was able to do 3 artist residencies. Very fortunate, and that had a big influence on all of this work. I got to go to Sitka Center for Art and Ecology and spent 6 weeks there in isolation. It was great, and you know, this is right on the ocean and the rainforest, one of the most beautiful places in the world, and just soak it all in. And it's so interesting what happens when you are an artist or a writer or creative person of any kind, or not. If you go to a different place and immerse yourself in that place, something changes in your brain, which is really wonderful, and I need that change continually, so I keep on trying to do these residencies. But so Sitka Center, I was there for 6 weeks, and then I went up to Playa, which is in the up near Summer Lake, Oregon, in the high desert, and that's where I was very inspired to do this piece here on the wall, which is my favorite piece in the show. I'm just drawn to that. And they had a wonderful event up there at the residency called Dark Sky Night. And they had a poet, Scott Siegel from Portland, who was reciting poetry, and it was a community event. So all these people, you know, it's Lake County, and Lake County is this huge, you know, expanse, geographical area. And people, it was like 9 degrees that night, and people drove from all over to come to this very beautiful lodge in the middle of the playa and have dark sky night. They had big telescopes outside, and it was really something. It was the first event that I had been to. It was in December this past year. It was the first event that I had been to, like a crowd of people since the pandemic. It was like, wow, you know. But anyway, it was really inspiring, and so I kept on working on this piece while I was there, and sort of invented a new octopus constellation. If you look closely, you can see that there's octopus constellation maps, and and things. And then one more thing about a residency. Actually, I got to go to the Vashon Artists Island. They call it the Vashon Residency. It's on Vashon Island in across from Seattle, which is another gorgeous place. Really fortunate to go there, and right on the water. And the first time I went there was in January 21, and the Omicron strain had just hit, and there were supposed to be 4 artists there, and I was the only one that showed up. So I had this big house to myself. It was extraordinary. And then I was invited back for this theme residency just this past summer, and there were 4 of us that do work relating to water. So we got together on the island and we did all these Zoom meetings ahead of time. There were 2 artists from San Francisco, 1 from Chicago. We all met and we discussed, you know, our theme beforehand, and we interviewed all kinds of people that work with the environmental agencies on Vashon and the Vashon Land Trust and restoring land. And it was just, I learned so much working with these other artists, and we were planning to have a show there at the Vashon Art Center in 2025, like way in the future. And so anyway, all these places I've been, you know, I've been really lucky to go to these places and work, you know, have a big influence on what I do and really help me with my continued evolution. Yeah. So, does anyone have any questions? I don't know how long I've been talking, how long I should go, so. Any questions along the way, feel free to ask me. But, yeah, Jason.
About how many layers of paper do you use? So what is the most?
Oh, layers of paper?
Yeah.
Well, I don't layer the paper so much. Actually, like a few of these over here, these paintings have collage pieces on them that are on Japanese paper, and then I cut them out and I adhere them to the panels. And but most of the layers are like built up through, depending on which piece you're talking about, like printmaking, monoprint techniques, or etching. Some of them have wood cut, and then I keep on layering over, usually with the India ink. So that's really, I don't know how to answer that question, but I just kind of layer and layer and layer until they start
That's a
working.
little bit of texture then.
Yes, right. Like some of them too, like these where I really build up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been really fun to